Deepak, good evening. Thank you for speaking to me once again. I want to start by asking you, what is your analysis of what is happening in Dhaka? Because, so much has been said, so much has been written already. What is your take on what's the situation?
See, obviously, I'm not a geopolitical expert, and there are better informed people like Mr. Sushant Sareen to explain this issue. But from what I understand from such well-informed individuals, is obviously Asia once again has become the battleground for the fight between big powers. And this time, perhaps it's a fight between United States and China, with Bangladesh, which happens to be caught in the crossfire at this point. An unwilling regime which is not willing to bend to the whim and fancy of both the West as well as China, appears to be caught in the crossfire at this point. And the fact of the matter is, Hindus of Bangladesh are currently paying the price. For some reason, every time there seems to be some kind of a trouble in that country, it's mysterious, or perhaps it's not mysterious, that Bangladesh manages to wreak havoc on the religious minorities of its country. That means significantly the Hindus, for that matter. And the videos that have emerged over the last 24 hours, the number of emails that I've been receiving, the number of direct messages that I've been getting on social media platforms, including pictures and videos, it's horrendous, it's unbelievable. I genuinely hope that the Indian state is stepping into the picture at least to protect these minorities. And two, I do believe that but for the fact that the current dispensation is standing its ground, we would have seen a similar outcome had the outcome of the elections of June 2024 been any different.
Now, let me ask you this. You're talking about the minorities being under attack, the Hindus now coming under attack, their places of worship under attack. There is an ecosystem, Sai, that is trying to, play down the attack or the severity of the attack, almost trying to trivialize what is happening. Your thoughts on this narrative?
No, I think that denial is to be expected because that's malicious and that's always bad faith. I'm not surprised anymore because when Hindus end up asking, where are the Bollywood celebrities, where are these liberals and so on and so forth, I would actually ask the Hindus to stop having any expectations of this clique or cabal. Instead, they must focus on pooling together their resources to be able to defend themselves and their brethren in different parts of the world. Unless and until Hindus develop that sense of realization and come together as a community to protect themselves with or without the support of the state of affairs will continue, according to me. I've always said this very clearly, that notwithstanding the importance of state power, unless and until Hindus as a society stand up and put together their own mechanisms to defend themselves, their property, their dignity, and their interests, we will not be able to survive this war of attrition, which I think has been going for centuries now and will continue for some time. I am least interested in the outcome, or let's say in the comments of some of these people. I'm more interested in how many Hindus themselves have got into this particular denial. Because I don't expect any better from people who don't wish well for Hindus or who are fundamentally designed or manufactured to hate Hindus. That's a different issue altogether. But what about Hindus themselves? So this is one of those instances where I would like to find out how many people with Hindu names themselves are in denial of what's happening in Bangladesh. And how difficult is it for them to wrap their heads around the fact that what's happening in Bangladesh is perhaps a trailer of what could happen here, or what is it that the Western powers as well as China want in Bharat. So I'm done exposing these people, so-called left liberals and the seculars and all that. I don't think that works anymore. I never resorted to that, and I don't think people should have any such expectations or better expectations from these people. Focus on defending yourself. Focus on protecting your interests. Focus on protecting your people, regardless of the country or the jurisdiction they're in. Rally around their safety and security. That is the most important thing. It makes very little sense to play this exposed game at this point.
Let me tell you this, Sai, that, the ecosystem that you're talking about, or we are talking about, you run the risk of being branded a hate monger by them because, things that have been said about you in the past and things that have been said on the post that you've put. When you say that we need to come together as a community, what does it mean?
See, it's very simple. I don't think it's that difficult. One, notwithstanding my differences of opinion with certain groups, I do believe that other communities have managed to secure their interest in this country, whether or not there is a government which represents their interest, whether they believe that the government in power is pro them or anti them, they somehow manage to get their way. How does this work? Two things. One, they show up at the elections. That's point one.
Okay.
And they're very clear that there is a clear power to be wielded at the hustings when you show up to vote. Second, they make sure that the religious institutions become the rallying points or centers for them to cogitate over the community's interest. They use those institutions to further two things. One, their religious interest as well as their social interest. Three, they understand very well that demographics is destiny, particularly in a democracy, because it's a game of numbers. Four, whether or not the state is there to protect them in terms of their physical safety, they have their organizations. I am asking for the very same model to be replicated as far as Hindus is concerned within the bounds of the law. I'm sure that self-defense is perfectly defendable as a constitutional right, as a fundamental right. After all, if right to life has to be given effect to, and the state is proving to be ineffective in several parts of the world, not just in this country, to protect Hindu interest, what else do you expect Hindus to do? I'm not pointing fingers at any particular dispensation, but more often than not, I see that whether due to lack of resources or lack of political will or both, or depending on who is in power in a given state, Hindus are constantly at the receiving end of it. I'll ask a very simple question. While we certainly must pay attention to what's happening to the condition of Hindus in Bangladesh, how different do you think was the condition of Hindus in Bengal post-2021 poll results? So I bring this up for a specific reason. The post-poll violence case today was listed before the Supreme Court, and the matter is to be taken up in November again.
Okay.
Go through the gruesome description of mass rapes, gang rapes, and exodus to parts of Assam from Bengal immediately after 2021, and a few months ago what was happening in Bengal. How was the situation any different? Perhaps the exception being scale. There is no difference whatsoever. That is the condition and that is the reality. I am not being a hate monger here. If I ask for the protection of my community and the people of my community, regardless of jati, regardless of varna, regardless of so-called caste barriers, how am I a hate monger if I'm asking for protection of Hindus? I should be branded a hate monger if I spew venom against somebody else. I am saying my people must be protected under any circumstances, regardless of the jurisdiction, regardless of the state, district, ward, whatever it may be, and regardless of their language. I'm asking for Hindu unity. I'm asking for cohesive Hindu identity. How is that wrong? Every community has a right to look out for its interest. As a member of the Hindu community, as a practicing Hindu, I equally have a right to push this particular agenda. What is so wrong about this agenda?
Well, let's see how this ecosystem responds to what you've just said. You believe that you're talking about protection and that this is in no way hate. Let me ask you what you put out in a post. You've said, and I'm quoting, regardless of the geography, we are on our own, unquote. What are you trying to say here? How should people read this? What is the message?
See, it's like this. When Hindus are in the majority, they get the rough end of the stick. When Hindus are in the minority, they don't get protection as the minority. There is no difference in the condition of Hindus in Leicester, in parts of United States today, in other parts of Europe, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, or in Bharat, in several parts of Bharat. What does this tell you? It basically tells you that we are constantly looking for allies who will stand up to us without realizing that unless you stand up for yourself, nobody else is going to stand up for you. And anybody else who does so will do so only because of strategic interest. We are so happy to support Israel during its time of need. And I'm sure they are responding as well and they're reciprocating as well. But one thing was clear. When India offered support to the state of Israel, or at least there were some vocal sections on social media who said we should support Israel. The immediate response that came from the Israeli ambassador was, we don't need anybody to defend us. We're only asking for material support. We're not asking for human support. We are saying you might support our cause, but we will do the actual thing on the ground because we know how to address this problem. Now, whatever the opinions may be at the end of the day, with respect to what Israel has done and what it is continuing to do, the fact of the matter is that self-confidence that we can address our own problems is the product of that community looking up to itself and counting itself in times of need, at least for over a century. That, let's say, spirit of self-reliance, the so-called Atmanirbharta, is yet to come about in a society or in a community which is larger than the Jewish population of the world. Remember, the entire number of Jews, the total population of Jews around the world, is not more than 1.5 to 1.25 crores.
I get that.
The maximum amount you're looking at.
Yes.
That's roughly 12.5 million. Compare that with the Hindu community. We are practically an ocean compared to them. And yet look at the sense of helplessness, desperation, cluelessness in dealing with these situations. So I am saying, unless and until you choose to take a decision that we will protect our own interests, regardless of who stands with us or against us, you will always find yourself at the receiving end of support, which may or may not come, and you're constantly looking for help from the outside. So I'm saying you have the people, you have the brains, you have the resources. For God's sake, you have the 7th largest country in the world, at least have 1 billion people around the world. It's not as if you're still a poor population. We have produced so many people who have enough resources to help the rest of the community. Why haven't we produced a single Hindu George Soros? Let me put that question bluntly. Who looks out for Hindu interest? That's because we are more than interested in securing our individual interests and constantly, let's say, feathering our nest, as opposed to looking out for the community. That is the single biggest missing X factor that makes sure that we operate as individuals, but not as a community. I'm not saying individualism needs to die at the altar of community identity, but at the end of the day, for its instances such as these which are happening in Bangladesh, that unless there is community, to hope that secularism, rule of law, democracy, state apparatus, and everything else will come to protect you, and something called as a rules-based world order,
Okay.
it doesn't exist. Ask the Hindus of Bangladesh if they think that the United Nations operates for them or it exists for them. It does not. So the communities, organizations need to step up, and they need to look out for interest wherever it may be. Sri Lankan Hindus, the Hindus in Myanmar, Hindus in Bangladesh, wherever they may be, we must look out for them. Unless and until we expand our vision and we make sure that with or without state support, the society will have the wherewithal to protect its people, we will constantly be revisiting the situation over and over again with futility.
Okay, your thrust on community, Sai Deepak, let me ask you this. You are saying coming together as a community. Why do you think this is not happening already? Is it because of the so-called woke definition of secularism, or is it the politics of, what would you say, of being politically correct? What is preventing this?
See, what passes off as secularism today was called as Chakshulajja by Sri Aurobindo, which is the dying need to be politically correct at the altar and at the expense of your own interest and survival. Sometimes it helps to speak the truth bluntly, to call a spade so that you know what the problem is. If you struggle to articulate the problem, its contours, and its true cause, and you can't even begin to spell it out or verbalize it for your own sake, how do you hope to operate in terms of finding out the actual solutions? If you constantly delude yourself into believing that there is something called as Sarvadharma Vada Pav Bhaji, what I call, as I call it, it doesn't exist. For God's sakes, it doesn't exist. As they say, from all pigs are equal, some pigs are more equal. So what you're seeing in Bangladesh is the more equal pigs going after the minorities of Bangladesh, and specifically the Hindu minority, because I don't wish to use the word minority in a vague sense so that the Hindu identity in that minority is lost. Sorry. Right. From close to 24%, they've come down to what? 13 million, 1.3 crores. That's the current population of Bangladeshi Hindus in Bangladesh today. What was the figure in 1971 after the creation of Bangladesh? I've always maintained this, and I've said this. If you think that Bangladesh was a friendly country, it was perhaps at best a difference in degree depending on who was in power. But Bangladesh was and remains erstwhile East Pakistan, which is dying to merge back with Pakistan. Look at the kind of flags that have come out. If it is a believer in the Pakistan theory or the idea of Pakistan, then it puts faith in the two-nation theory. If it puts faith in the two-nation theory, I don't think I need to spell out too much. But what is the position of Kafirs in a state that believes in two-nation theory? The number of pogroms that Bengali Hindus have witnessed is unimaginable. And it's not just about what happened in Operation Searchlight in the backdrop of 1971. Much before that, 1905 or even before that, I've detailed this extensively as part of my second book. before and after the partition of Bengal in 1905, leading to the founding of the Muslim League in Bangladesh, for God's sakes, or erstwhile East Pakistan or East Bengal. So when you see this, I happened to deliver a lecture, or I participated in a debate around the results of NRC in Assam in 2019 at a law school in Hyderabad, the National Law School in Hyderabad, where I specifically said, if you choose to look at the infiltration of Bangladeshi illegal migrants into this country as merely a human problem without realizing that this is a systematic issue which has been at play for quite some time, because the end goal is the creation of greater Bangladesh, or what I call greater Pakistan, on both sides.
Right.
Some people scoffed at it. Tell me, what are you seeing at this point? Aren't we seeing increasing reports of Rohingyas and Bangladeshis having infiltrated in this country? I keep saying this. That problem which you think is the problem of Bangladesh, or which used to be the problem of West Bengal or Tripura, has become the problem of the rest of this country. From Chembur to Mylapore to parts of the remote parts of Bharat, Goa or whatnot, this problem pervades and infests. Now, unless and until you're willing to articulate this clearly, address this problem head on, and you try only some pain management for a cancer or a band-aid for a cancer,
Okay.
it will not work. And I must say this, at some point, the Hindu community must realize that while there could be political outfits and organizations that may bat for it, they will always operate under political compulsions. Only
Right.
societal organizations and Hindu organizations are capable of operating without any of those fetters or compulsions, and can speak in an unvarnished fashion
Right.
for Hindu interest, for Bharatiya interest, because both cannot be dehyphenated. Hindu interest ensures Bharatiya interest.